What's good, everyone? This is Mikerotastraphy here, and today I want to give you an updated guide video on Marvel Rivals. Today is going to be about Cloak and Dagger. She's currently my main support hero when I do competitive matches in Marvel Rivals. I do have Invisible Woman as a sub healer, and I might also add Ultron as another sub healer because his kit sounds really interesting, but we just gotta wait for him to drop later on in season 2.5. But for the time being, Cloak and Dagger has been my main since season 0. I still love her, but since then, a lot of changes, both good and bad, has affected Cloak and Dagger. So I want to give an updated guide video on what was changed since season 0, and also basically give you just a little bit of an explanation on like how you can best play as Cloak and Dagger right now in season 2.0 in Marvel Rivals. Now, as of season 2, there's been a lot of changes that went on to Cloak and Dagger's kit. Majority of it has been with their ultimate, so I'll go over more in detail about that, but everything else about their kit, like their basic abilities, their basic combos, things like that, a lot of that stayed the same. So if you want to get more information on that, I would suggest just check out my original advanced guide video on Cloak and Dagger. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. But in terms of their ultimate, before season 2, you were able to do 3 dashes with them, but on top of that, you can stack the dashes on top of one another, so you can do a lot of good power play on making yourself and your team invincible by stacking the dashes on top. But they recently nerfed that to where you cannot do that anymore. If you stack multiple dashes in the same area, it's only going to count as one instance. So it almost incentivizes you to kind of spread your ultimate in a wider radius instead of keeping it congested in a very tight line. But on top of that, they allow you to do 4 dashes instead of 3. So I guess that's their way of making up for it. So what I do when I play as Cloak and Dagger is I usually use my ultimate during team fights. Either A, when I'm trying to bait out their support ult and I let them go first, I wait a few seconds and then I go, because that way when their ultimate ends, my ultimate is still there, so then it kind of keeps my team in the team fight a little bit longer, so I kind of play chicken more or less with the enemy supports. Or if we're coming in clutch and we just need to capture a point or stall for any type of map, then I would just use my ultimate around the checkpoint or around the payload just to stall as long as we can for either A, my teammates to kind of clean up the rest of the heroes, or B, give my teammates enough time to get from spawn point back into the fight and we can just get into another team fight from there. So that's how I use my ultimate nowadays in Marvel Rivals. Other than that, she's still a really good healer, even though because of the amount of nerfs that they received and other support heroes have received buffs, it probably would be argued that she might be the weakest quote-unquote support hero in the game. That doesn't mean she's bad. It just means that there's other heroes that probably just got so much more TLC that she doesn't seem as the greatest in this season. But for me, in my opinion, I mean, it doesn't matter, because as long as the support hero can still do their job, which is keeping your team alive, that's really all that matters. Every other, let's say, quote unquote, aspect to their kit is like cherry on top. And Cloak and Dagger, that's really Cloak's debuff ability is still unique to him, where you can just cast a dark blanket out and a radius in front of you. Any enemy that is hit by it is not only blinded, but they take 20% extra damage for that. So if you pair that with a ally Mantis giving your DPS an attack buff, well then they get that attack buff, multiply your 20% buff, well then you can melt the enemy team very fast that way. Or with Rocket Raccoon's ult, where he can give a 25% damage buff to a whole wide radius around his beacon, well, I mean, that scales with your 20% extra damage while blinding the enemies. So that's why, in my personal opinion, Cloak and Dagger is still really great in Marvel Rivals. It's just that they're just going to be considered low on the totem pole, but that just doesn't make them bad. They're still a really great support character to play, and they're still fairly easy to master. On top of that, with my own personal opinion with Cloak and Dagger, you can use Dagger as an anti-aerial denial sub DPS simply because her daggers home in on targets. So that means that if you don't have an allied Namor in your team and you're fighting against like an Iron Man, a Human Torch, Storm, maybe even Ultron, because I'm pretty sure Ultron will fly in this game, then you can take a small break in between healing your allies and just poke those flyers from afar. And you don't need to worry about like DPSing them down to the point where you can kill them. I mean, it'd be great if you can, but just enough to kind of like get them away from like an ideal spot where they can target you and your teammates quite a bit, because the more they have to spend time moving around in a team fight because they keep getting poked at, that's time that they can't DPS you or your teammates. So that's why I still say to this day, and I'm going to own it, that Dagger is a really great aerial denial support hero as a sub DPS, because she can definitely shut down aerial heroes from just camping at a certain spot. And if you're fighting against enemy Human Torches who does their like meteor crash, or where they crash to the ground, they're trying to do big DPS to you or your heroes, then you have a short window where you're within range to cast your Dark Veil ability from Cloak to amplify damage taken, and they'll be within range that you can use your primary fire from Cloak to do huge amount of damage and actually try to get a kill that way. I've done that all the time when I'm fighting against enemy Human Torches, to kind of really punish them for trying to take me out or take my ally heroes out. So that's why if I'm playing in a competitive match and we're fighting against enemy flyer heroes, I don't mind playing the support role, because I know how to juggle between keeping my teammates alive while also poking down the enemy flyers. But if we're talking about the two new heroes that just got released in Season 2 of Marvel Rivals, which will be Emma Frost and eventually Ultron in 2.5 patch update, when you're playing as Cloak and Dagger against Emma Frost, she's basically a Vanguard through and through that has a little bit of capabilities of, let's say, Doctor Strange mixed with the Thing. And that's kind of what her kit kind of almost resolve around. Why I say that is because she gives out a shield, just like Doctor Strange, that provides a lot of value of guarding against enemy projectiles and things like that to protect herself and her allies. So if you see Emma Frost trying to A around your tank heroes, because more than likely she's trying to DPS them down to cause a steamroll and cause you to lose a team fight. So the longer you can keep your tanks alive, then the harder it is for the enemy Emma Frost to steamroll a team fight. Because more than likely, an Emma Frost won't set their sights on you right away. They're going to try to DPS down your tanks or your DPS heroes. So just keep in mind of that. But you can switch into Cloak and cast your Dark Veil at her. So regardless if she's in diamond form or not, she's going to take amplified damage for that first few seconds. And that should give you and your teammates more than enough time to burst her down to force her to retreat or pick her off before she steamrolls a fight. Now, when Emma Frost casts her ultimate, you can still get away from it if you cast Cloak's ability to shroud yourself and your teammates in that Shadow Force to protect yourself from being hypnotized and CC'd down. And even though it's for a few seconds, it does give you and your teammates that few seconds to figure out how they want to get away from Emma Frost or figure out how to counteract against her. Because as long as your heroes should be able to use their ultimate in retaliation. It's as long as you're within her cone and you're not being protected by a wall or by the Shadow Force from Cloak ability, you're not able to cast any ultimate, and you're susceptible to eventually get CC'd to get hypnotized from Emma Frost. So that's something to keep in mind when you're dueling against her. Now, if we're talking about Ultron, again, I will do another video when his kit is officially released, but speculatively speaking, it's a good chance he's going to be a flyer. He's going to be a support hero, which means that would be your way to hard counter Ultron, because, like I said, you're an aerial denial sub DPS hero while being a support, so you can keep your teammates alive while poking down Ultron, so he needs to fly around and reposition himself to either poke against your teammates or heal his allies. so you can definitely be an answer to Ultron when he does drop. But that is as far as I can say until his full kit is revealed. That's all I want to talk about for today's video for Cloak and Dagger. Like I said, this is just an updated guide video on what was changed, what's to come, how do you duel against the 2 new heroes that just dropped. If you want to hear how you can best duel against other heroes as Cloak and Dagger, let me know in the comments below, and I can definitely do a separate video on how you as a support main could duel against other heroes in Marvel Rivals. But on top of that, let me know your thoughts about Cloak and Dagger and the patch updates. Despite them two still being on the low totem pole of support heroes, do you still want to main them? Are you still playing as them competitively? I want to hear that below. And if you want to hear more updated guide videos such as this on your favorite heroes, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It'll definitely help me out with the algorithm to push my videos out to other people who wants to improve their gameplay in Marvel Rivals, both competitively and just for fun. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video today. This is Mikerotastraphy, and I'll catch you guys later.